The joke is, you couldn't wait 3 hours. Who are the kind of people that are very limited in time and they can't wait? Everything has to be exactly on time. It's called the Germans. They're called Yekers. Such a Yeker. Why you couldn't wait? It's a joke. Okay. It's a little corny. It's a joke. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you a trivia question. I ask you every year. I'll ask you again this year. Name me a mitzvah, not a minhag, a mitzvah, that prior to doing this mitzvah, you have to either be sitting down or lying down. If you're standing up before the mitzvah, you cannot do this mitzvah. And it's in this week's parsha. 3 words. No one gets it. Nobody gets it. Don't worry about it. Huh? Very, very close. Wow.
We just did it.
It's actually not those 3 words, but in that same pasuk, mipnei seva takum. You have to stand up when you see an elderly person. Like someone like me, I'm old, I don't think I was about to say that. When you see someone old, you have to respect that person. You have to stand up. But you can't be the kind of mitzvah of standing up if you're already standing. But you have to be in a sitting position or in a lying position prior to the mitzvah. That's the answer. Okay. What I didn't discuss last week was we're learning about the laws of honoring parents. You weren't here, right, last week? Okay. So what I didn't discuss last week is how come we don't make a bracha before we honor our parents? Something like that. We make a bracha before every mitzvah. Why don't we make a bracha before this mitzvah? So there are a lot of answers. One answer is, not the most famous answer, is because if the parents were to be mochel, were to say, you don't need to do it, it would be no longer a mitzvah. And you can't make the bracha after you do the mitzvah. You got to make the bracha before you do the mitzvah, and you never really know for sure what's going to happen. But the most accepted reason is we don't make brachas on mitzvahs that are between man to man, especially if they're moral and ethical, and even non-Jews do it too. We only make brachas on mitzvahs that you can tell that the only reason why you're doing it is because God said so. Who eats matzah on Pesach? Who benches lulav and esrog and sits in a sukkah, puts on tefillin or puts on tzitzis, or lights Shabbos candles? These are all things that you don't normally do. Then you make a bracha. Or another interesting answer, I'll stop with this. We don't make a bracha on a mitzvah that is constant. There's no limited time for honoring your parents. There is a limited time for every other mitzvah you can think of. Lulav, esrog, sukkah, shofar, Megillah, you name it. Lighting Shabbos candles. Every mitzvah has its time. For the mitzvahs that have its time zone, for that mitzvah you make a bracha before. But for mitzvahs that are continuous, you don't. So I gave you three, almost 4 answers, 3 answers. Number 1, since your father or your mother could be mochel, they could say, no, thank you. That would eliminate the mitzvah, and you can't make the bracha if you don't know if the mitzvah will be fulfilled. It's a suffix. You have always a doubt. So you have to, and you can't make the bracha after you've honored your parents. It's too late. Bracha has to always precede the mitzvah, not follow the mitzvah. It's called a famous rule. A bracha has to always precede what you're doing, not follow what you're doing. Okay, then the other answer was it's man to man. We don't make brachas on mitzvahs that are ben adam lechavero. And the third answer is, especially when even non-Jews do it. And another answer is that we don't make a bracha on a mitzvah that is constant. It has no time limit. Good to know these answers. That's also the reason why we don't make a bracha on the mitzvah of tzedakah. Tzedakah is also man to man. And it's also continuous. There's no special time when you have to give tzedakah or not. Anytime a person comes to you, you give tzedakah. Not dependent on a certain time. And also, you don't know if the guy is going to take it. What happens if he says, no, thank you? I'm okay. The poor man who doesn't want to take your money. You made the bracha already, and now the mitzvah is not being done, becomes a problem. There's an interesting shaila that's asked by Kibbutz Alba Aim, which I didn't discuss last week, and I'll go over things I did discuss before we learn inside. At what point have you fulfilled a mitzvah? Well, let's say it's honoring parents. Your father tells you, your mother tells you, bring me a glass of water. And you run to bring your father or your mother a glass of water. But what happens? Your father or your mother falls asleep. have you fulfilled this mitzvah by running and preparing? Or is the moment of actually when they derive benefit from it, that's when you fulfill the mitzvah? Is the mitzvah running to honor them, or is only if they were honored already, if they received the meaning they were awake to receive and benefited from it? From the Gemara, it would seem like that only after they actually benefited from it is the mitzvah fulfilled. And there's a story, I don't know if we'll get there today, probably not, but I have an interesting chiddush of my own on that Gemara, which I'd like to share with you. To me, it's dear because it came from yours truly. I don't have too many chidushim, but this is something that I thought about myself, and you'll see what I mean if we ever get there. Probably not today, where I'm going. Okay, now what else I want to say? Yeah, so what we discussed last week, just to review some of the things we discussed last week. That the honoring of parents by Jews is a different level than by non-Jews. By non-Jews, it's just a moral gratitude, paying up a debt. Like, they did so much for you when they created you. You're here because of them, and they helped you when you were young. You gotta reciprocate and show menschlichkeit, decency, by saying thank you very much. That's it. But when we honor parents, it's honoring Hashem, because the parents are shutfim, are partners in creation. The power to procreate is a God-given power. We mentioned last week, it's a miracle that we just take for granted. We're so used to it. That's why there are a lot of parents who are both healthy, physically healthy, and they don't have children. We don't know why. There's no medical reason for it. So the power of when parents are honored, you're actually honoring Hashem, who's the third partner with these two parents, and enables them to be partners. Gives them the strength to be able to produce a child. That element, that it's actually a mitzvah between you and Hashem, is for the Jewish people. That's why I mentioned last week, where do you find the mitzvah of honoring parents? On which side of the luchos? On the right side, which is all man to God laws. I am God, I am Hashem, you shall not have avodah zarah, keep Shabbos, right? And then at the end it says, honor your parents. In the non-Jewish world, it wouldn't belong on that side. It would belong on the other side, on the man-to-man laws. So that's the unique difference between when a Jew is honoring parents and when a non-Jew is honoring parents. Big difference. I also mentioned last week, and I won't mention it again, just for what wasn't here, that honoring parents is the fifth commandment, and some of the Parshim say you got to read the commandments across. Number 1, number 6 are related. I am Hashem, I am God, your God, do not murder. There's a connection. If you realize that every human being has a image of God within him, by killing a human being, you're actually doing something a lot more serious than that. You're fighting against Hashem, who is found in every single human being, even a non-Jew too. What's the connection between the fifth commandment and the 10th commandment? Honoring your parents is number 5. What was the 10th one? Don't covet someone else's house or a wife. So what was the connection? How do you connect honoring parents with don't covet someone else's wife? And the answer is, if the parents, while they're together in intimacy, are thinking of someone else, she's thinking about who knows what, and he's thinking about who knows who, and she becomes pregnant, the baby that will be born from that union will not respect their parents, because the baby will sense, consciously or subconsciously, that their biological parents are not the real parents. They weren't thinking about they were thinking about who knows what, fantasies. So if you want to make sure that your children honor you, then honor each other during intimacy. Don't think about someone else. If they're into each other, a good baby, a child who will honor parents will be born. A loving child who will love his parents, honor his parents, and of course honor Hashem, who's the third partner. One second, just one more thing. And whenever the parents have good thoughts, holy thoughts, not any extraneous thoughts, Hashem says, let me get involved. I'd like to be around. The third partner says, put me in, involve me also. And then guess what? The child that's born can resemble the third partner, not just the father. We say, who's the baby look like, mommy or tati? What about God? the Shekhinah, that sometimes some babies are just holy. They just they love Yiddishkeit. They love doing a mitzvah. We should only have more of those kids. These kids are beautiful children. And Hashem says to the parents, boy, thank you so much. You've honored me by having such children. And the child, by honoring the parents, is also honoring Hashem. They're both. Hashem says, wow, I'm so happy that I dwell between the parents, because look what you have over here. Beautiful children who are honoring parents. It's a result of the Shekhinah that was involved. Because when it says Isha, there's a Yud in the word Isha, in the word Ish, Aleph, Yud, Shin. There's a Hey in the letter Isha, Aleph, Shin, Hey. So it's H, fire, H, but there's a Yud and a Hey, which makes Hashem's name. That when they're not fire, just lust, like no lust is just no interest. They don't love each other. They love the act, and they're not interested at all in each other. They don't love the person. You love more just the act. That's called lust, L-U-S-T, and that's fire. Those two fires, Hashem says, leave me out of it. Which means, yeah, of course, I'm going to help you produce, because otherwise, without me, you can't produce. But I know the child you're going to have is not going to be resembling the maker, your creator. Okay. What do you want to ask? You forgot? What?
Are men learning this
Huh?
in yeshiva?
What?
Are men learning this in yeshiva?
They learning this?
I
This
think
Gemara?
last class you said no.
What?
I think the last week you said that they are not learning this.
Learning this.
Yeah.
Well, they actually did. When I was learning Yeshiva, we went through this, but we did it fast. This was not like the Gemara, which we went really deep into, because it's not as hard. The Gemara that we went, I didn't say we didn't learn it. We didn't go into too much detail because it was relatively easy. Relative to the Gemara the boys learned, this is 1, 2, 3 goes.
Shots.
I would put sleep if I do that. Either falling asleep because it's boring, or falling asleep because I don't know what you're talking about, Rabbi. I don't have what clue what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, you want to know the name of the Masechta? The same Masechta above Kiddushin, but from the beginning. This is Kiddushin, page 30. They do learn the beginning, the first chapter, which is very long. Actually, they cover this. They cover this chapter. They cover this also. It's a very long chapter, but they skip. They don't learn the whole first chapter. They learn about the first 10 or 12 pages of the first chapter. Then they skip to the second chapter, which is page 41, I think. And they skip through most of the in between. They only learn it. It's called Legirsa, quickly. Just, Gemara and Rashi, no other commentaries. But the first chapter, they learn deep with all the commentaries, and you can get a headache from it. I think you girls would do very well, but you probably get a headache from it.
Sure.
I can tell. I did it once before, and I regret it. I once did it before the class, and I gave a class what I would normally give for the boys, and Rabbi, can you stop this? So I'm not going to do it again. It was about the laws of Edom Zomimim, conspiratory false witnesses that tried to conspire and get the other witnesses in trouble by saying, you guys are liars. How could you testify that this happened, that the murder took place, in New York on 10 o'clock on a Wednesday evening, on that exact hour that you claim you saw the murder, you were with us in California. How could you claim that you were in New York? We don't know. The story might have happened. You might be right. It might have happened, but you could not have seen it. We believe a second pair of witnesses. That was the subject I was talking about. And I went in.
Like 30 different things in like the first 3 pages.
Which
Of the very first chapter.
yeah. Lots of it. It's so heavy. It's about different ways how a woman can be married. How do you marry a woman? Money, with a star, other ways. And it goes back and forth. The Gemara is very back and forth-ish, question, answer, question, now the answer, and you can get lost. It's twists. You have to be able to, they say in Yiddish, half cup. You have to hold your head on your shoulders, otherwise. And the boys learn the whole day. They spend the whole day on this. And of course, they also spend the get smicha, the smicha laws, which is, kashrus, meat and milk, all the different laws. So when you get a little older, you spend half a day on that, half a day on learning Gemara, and half a day on that. There was one Gemara, Tractate Yevamos, the hardest tractate in the entire Shas. It was too hard even for the boys, and they took it out. There's eight different tractates, rotation every 8 years. And 9th year, you go back to the beginning of the 9th year. This was There used to be 9 tractates. Yevamos, levirate marriage, it's called. You know, levirate marriages? When a woman who has no children loses her husband childless. So the brother-in-law has to take over. The mitzvah for him to. We haven't mentioned. It's not mentioned in Chumash until Parshas Kiseitze, the end of the Dvarim. But that's such a difficult Masechta. My father loved that Masechta. The more difficult it was, the more he loved it. Intricate. And any rabbi would come to his house who claimed that who felt that he's a real big Talmud Chacham. My father would convince him that you're not a big Talmud Chacham. He'd start off right away in the middle of that intricate subject and go and drive the guy crazy. And the guy was embarrassed to say, I don't know what you're talking about, Rabbi. But he couldn't say that, so he would just ask, I think I have to leave right now. Okay, let's see the Gemara. You probably have a copy from last week. Let's continue where we left off last week. And I'll give you some new papers we ever needed. Okay, let's get back to the Gemara. Okay. It's very interesting Gemara. I want to learn this until we finish the whole thing, because I don't want to stop. We don't have that many weeks to go for the rest of the year. Okay, so we're up to we learned 30b4, the first page, and the second side also, and we're up to the middle of the second side. Hold on a second. Yeah, on page 31a1, that would be you have the old copy. Oh, I'll give you the okay. The old one. Okay, so this will be this page. Yeah, this page here.
Thank you.
Okay, so on page 31a1. Okay. Okay, but last week's. Hold on a second. Finally. Yeah, give me 1 second. Okay. You don't have last week's copy?
No.
What happened?
I put it down.
Oh, let's find it.
I can also take pictures.
Take a picture of this. Okay, this is,
Just the page, is it?
yeah, this page on the next page also. Okay. Okay, so on the top of 31, no, I'm sorry, on the, not on top, on the middle of the page, the left side, this is not related to Kibbutz al so much, but we'll learn anyways. This is in general, this is in the middle of page 31a1, where it says the theme of God's presence in this world continued with the following Aramaic teaching. Aramoraic teaching. Omar Rabbi Yitzchak. You have it? 30, on top of the page, it starts off with the words, his mother wins him over with pleasant words. That's the very top of the page. On the top side of the page, it says his mother wins him over with pleasant words. It should be 31a1. We got mixed up over here. Oh, I think I have it. Yeah, actually have an extra copy here. Yeah, so here it is. Doesn't say the name of the page here, but what you see it on top? It'll be over here in the middle of the left side. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Kol ha'over aver b'seisa. Whoever does a sin secretly, who commits a sin in secret, he'ilu dochek ragle shchina. It's as if he pushes away the feet of the divine presence. Hashem's presence is in this world. You're making it sound like by sinning, he's not here. So as if you're pushing Hashem away from this world. Shenamar, how do we know that Hashem has his legs, so to speak? down on earth, meaning his lower levels of his presence are down on earth. Kol amar Hashem, Hashemayim kisi, the heavens are my chair of honor, kisi hakavod, v'ha'aretz hadom ragloi, and the earth is my footstool. You're pushing away my feet by sinning in secret, because you're saying, no one sees me. There's no one watching. Hashem is watching. Rabbi ben Levi, also la'adam she'yahalech arba amos v'koma skuf. A person is forbidden to walk 4 cubits, standing straight like that with an erect posture, like walking as if you own the world. It's as if to say, because every person has 4 cubits around him. That's your space. So if a person stands upright, staying, proud of himself, and that kind of stance, he's pushing away the Shekhinah, because God is everywhere, including in your 4 cubits. Also, it is forbidden, therefore, for a person to walk 4 amos. An amos is a cubit, about a foot and a half, with an erect posture. Because it said the entire world is full of Hashem's glory, and you are standing as if it's your glory. You're the balabas. You're the owner of these few feet around you. Rabbi Yeshua, he did not go 4 amos without his head, with his head uncovered. It doesn't mean that he wore a yarmulke only. It means that he actually wore more than a yarmulke. He had his hair covered, and head covered in addition to the yarmulke. Amar Shechina l'mayla miroshi. He said, the divine presence is above my head. How can I not show that? So he actually wore a second covering besides the natural covering that he would anyways have. Okay, it was taught above the mitzvahs of honoring one's father and one mother of equal importance. This gives rise to the following question. What happens if you have your father and your mother both asking you the same thing? Fetch me a glass of water. What do you listen to? That's the next Gemara. Shoal ben Almona Achas. There was a son of a widow. So his mother wasn't alive. His father wasn't alive. His father had died. And this Ben Almona, this son of a widow, asked Rabbi Eliezer the following question. Abba Omer Hashkeni Mayim. If my father says, give me a drink of water. The Ima Omer Hashkeni Mayim. And mom says the same thing. And at the same time, they're together, and mother says, give me a drink of water. And neither one is giving into the other. Which one of them should you serve first? Or Malay, Rabbi Eliezer answered him, Hanach kavod imcha, leave the honor due to your mother, va'aseh kavod avicha, and attend to the honor of your father. Why? He gave a reason. She'ata ve'imcha chayavim b'kavod avicha. For both you and your mother are obligated to honor your father. Since your mother has an obligation to honor your father, therefore, both of you, therefore, it's obvious that if there's a clash between the two, you honor your father first. Of course, everyone would agree if you can honor them both at the same time, you do so. But if one has to go first, the father goes first. Someone asked the question, doesn't the husband have to honor his wife? Your mother says you have to honor your wife more than yourself, buying her beautiful clothing. But it's a different kind of kavod. The kavod of a wife to a husband is reverence more, that kind of, an honor of reverence. A husband to a wife is an honor of love, buying her things, buying her jewelry, buying her nice clothing. That's what she appreciates more, probably. And he appreciates, I'm the man of the house, I'm the producer, so you have to, have that type of respect. It's a different kind of leadership. One is leading, and one is you have to appreciate. Women have to be appreciated, and men have to be revered. Both of them have both, but primarily the husband is the one who is the producer. That's how it should be. And therefore, she has to honor him. Therefore, the child has to honor the father if there's a clash, if you can do it together. Okay. That's the question. Now, it's understood from his answer that if the mother and father were no longer married or divorced, and they both want something from you, who goes first? Good question. That's his next. So you'll soon see he'll ask that question. But if the only reason when you put your father first is because your mother has to honor your father, that's only when they're married. If your mother is not married to your father, she doesn't have to honor your father anymore. They're cut off. Then who do you honor first? What do you think the answer would be? It's a good one. They're equal, right? So if you can honor them together, that's wonderful. There's a different opinion we'll soon see as to what the response over here is. Well, but to the Gemara here, it's not clear what the halacha is. I'll soon tell you why. But anyways, that question will soon come up. In the meantime, he just asked, father and mother, who do you honor first? Father. Okay. He wanted to be sure that he got a right answer. Rabbi Eliezer was from the student of Shammai. He wanted to hear from the student of Hillel, Rabbi Yeshua, if he agrees with Rabbi Elazar. So he came before Rabbi Yeshua. You ask one rabbi, ask another rabbi. But he was very careful to make not to hurt Rabbi Lezer's image. Why are you asking someone else? You don't trust me? Imagine if you're a teacher in a school, someone comes and asks you a question, you give an answer, and then your student asks another teacher the same exact question. How do you feel? Doesn't trust you, right? I would feel that way. You don't feel that way. You have no ego at all.
No, I'm saying maybe they just want to hear the points of view.
They're not sure about what I can really trust what you're saying. Why would you ask another person? You asked me, I gave you, I didn't say I don't know. I didn't say, I'm not sure, maybe this. I gave you a clear answer. Like I was sure of myself. Then you go ask someone else. It's a little insulting, isn't it?
Or maybe you want a doctor to ask the people.
You don't like the answer. Okay, it's also insulting. You don't like my answer. You don't, I mean, if you ask me a rub, you don't like my answer, it's also in a way insulting too.
For example, if I go to I have a problem, I want, for example.
Okay, that's a different story, but it's not, yeah. But over here, it's not the case. It's not a personal thing. It's father and mother, you don't really care. There's no motivation. I'd rather do this first. You want to know the halacha. You want to know the halacha, and it's not a personal thing. Why are you asking another rabbi? Because you don't trust this rabbi knows what he's talking about. Or maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. He's not the smartest guy. Someone smarter. That's what it would seem like. But he was very careful not to ask the exact same question that he asked the first rabbi. Let's see. Rabbi Yeshua. Then he comes before Rabbi Yeshua. Amalai Kach. He says, Rabbi Yeshua gave him the same exact answer as Rabbi Eliezer did. But just to show that he didn't only want to ask Rabbi Yeshua the question he asked Rabbi Eliezer, but he wanted to show that he really had another question in mind. He only repeated that first question just to get to the second question. It was like a springboard to get to his real question. Amalei Rebbe. He then said, "But that I know. Okay. That was obvious to me that the father goes before the mother. But what happens if they're divorced?" That question he did not ask Rabbi Eliezer. So the first rabbi would only ask the question if they're not divorced, but they never asked. The question was never asked if they are divorced. But with Rabbi Yeshua, he asked this question. He asked the question, what happens if they're divorced? So now it doesn't look so bad anymore for the first rabbi because you're asking a new question. You didn't ask the first rabbi. Well, if Rabbi Yeshua, Amalei Rebbe. Okay, I understand. But what happens is Gar Shamahu? If my mother is divorced from my father, what is the law? Amalei, Rabbi Yeshua said to him, I don't think you have a father. You've been crying a lot. From between your eyelashes, it is evident that you're a son of a widow. I see how much you've cried. And it's probably that your father has died and not your mother, because mothers suffer more when they lose their husbands and vice versa. Usually it's that way. Women are much more emotional. And when your mother is crying, you cry with her. There could be one reason why, I don't know who died, but it probably is someone very close to you. And between mother and father, it's probably the mother, because you cry more for your mother than for your father. Or sons are closer to their father. They need their father more. Father teaches them Torah. Girls, the mother, the boys, the father. So maybe because he lost his father, he cried more than if he would have lost his mother. So he said, probably lost your parent. You probably lost one of your parents. I would assume it's your mother that's alive and your father has passed on. So why are you asking this question? The question is not relevant to you. You're asking about if they're divorced. There's no divorce in your life. I can tell that one of your parents has died. It's probably that your father has died. So why are you asking the question? And you know what? It's also weird to ask this question. How could it be that if they're divorced already, they're both together asking you, they're sitting in the same house together asking you a question, asking you, fetch me some water? They're not going to be together anymore. Husband and wife, after they were divorced, they're not going to sit in the same room. It's in front of a child. They're supposed to be separate. So it sounds like a weird, a question that really is pertinent. You really have to know. And he said, therefore, he responded in humor like, pour water into a pitcher for them and coo to them as if they were roosters, i.e. the obligations to both are equal. What he meant to say is just give one gigantic, a plate, a container of water, let them both drink at the same time. What's the halakha taket? So what is the halakha if your father and mother are divorced? They're not together, but they're divorced, and each one in a different home, and each one tells you, please, on your way home, and the mamish, live on the same block. On your way home, please buy me some water. Who do you give first? Whoever you're going to give first, the other one's going to be slighted. So one says that's You have no choice. That's what you pick and choose, whoever you want. You can either pick your mother or your father. It's optional, yes.
Right.
How do you know? What do you mean, how they? Well, yeah, some say what you're saying. You pick, you have to get, you can't give them both at the same time, so you pick one over the other. But you won first. Well, okay, so another rabbi sitting right over here, and I'm sitting over here, and we both asking Yael, can you, and you're standing over there, can you give me a glass of water? And you go fetch it, and you give this rabbi a glass of water. Then you go again and you give this rabbi me a glass of water. I feel hurt. I have an ego. But yeah, that's fine. But what happens if you don't have 2 cups, you only have 1 cup, only 1 cup available. Ego means easing God out. You have an ego, that means God is not in your life. Easing God out, ego.
Yeah, so maybe
So that
couldn't take it personally.
Thank you very much. Either, but some say, tough luck. I mean, you can't. That's all I can do. I have to give one person. Make a goyrel. Okay, listen. Make a goyrel. Whoever's first, I'll get. That's one way of solving the problem. So it says the best thing is if you have a large enough glass to have both of them, or you have 2 glasses, put it both in front of them, let them choose. That would be the best answer. Okay. If one of them says, however, don't fulfill the mitzvah of honoring your mother, then you listen to your mother, not your father. If the father is saying, I don't want you to serve your mother, then he's violating a rule of kibbud av v'em. He's telling you to do something you're not allowed to do. Don't honor your mother. Or your mother says, don't honor your father, then the whole thing is off. Then, of course, you honor the person. In other words, the one who says that loses in that case. Okay, next case. Darash Ula. Interesting Gemara here. Darash Ula Rabba. Ula, the great one. Expounded a pischa on the entrance, the Beit Nesiya of the house of the Nasi. And he was trying to show the importance of humility. As great as you are, Nasi, I want to show you an example of even Hashem's humility. So if Hashem can be so humble, you should also be humble. What's the humility? My desiv, what is the meaning of that which is written? The pasuk in Tehillim. Yidurcha Hashem, page on it's 138. Pisel Kuf Lamed Ches. Yidurcha Hashem kol malchi yoret. All the kings of the world will acknowledge you. Yidurcha, they will thank you. They will acknowledge you, Hashem, because they heard the statements of your mouth. Meaning in the Aseret HaDibros, they heard something in the Aseret HaDibros that made them respect you more. It says Imrei Ficha. Many words. Ma'amar, which is singular, Ma'amar picha lo ne'amar, does not say the statement. They heard this one statement, but many statements. Ele imre picha. Instead, it says the statements plural of your mouth. And the Gemara meant it says like this: indicate that when Hashem said, "I am God, your God," here he goes again. He wants everyone to respect him. Self-centered. God is a very self-centered God. He wants everyone to respect him. Do not follow any idols. Again, he's showing only me and no one else. And the 3rd commandment, honor the Shabbos. I rested on Shabbos. I want you to honor me by resting on Shabbos. There he goes again. Everything's about him. Do not swear my name in vain. Don't you? Again, you have to be very careful. When you swear, do not swear for no reason. So again, he's Doresh Kavod Atzmai. He's demanding self-respect. They didn't respect that when the Glenn heard that. He's a dictator over here. God is dictator. Everything has to go his way. But as soon as the 5th commandment was given, which is the end of the first Ruach, the first tablet, what did they say? Wow, he's telling we should also honor our parents. You know what happens when you go to a king? Forget about your parents. You're now mine. The parents, divorce them. You're ours. You're in the army right now. Hashem doesn't say that. He says, honor your parents. And he compares it to honoring him. Wow. This God is not really there he wasn't there to promote his kavod. He was there because he's real. He wants us to have a connection to him. and he knows he's the creator. Had he been only for himself, he never would have said honor your parents. So he started respecting him. The word imre means words, plural, but it has another meaning. How do you say a hem? You know, a hem of a shirt or a blouse, the hem, the bottom. So in Hebrew, I don't know if it's Hebrew, but it's more like Aramaic. Imra sounds like Omar saying, but Imra is the bottom of a shirt or a blouse or whatever, called the hem. Kabir Sadiqa is the bottom, the fifth commandment of the first tablet. When they heard Imre Ficha, when they heard the end, the bottom of the five commandments, i.e., honor your father and mother, they started respecting Hashem. That's what it says here. So when before they heard the fifth one, Amru Umas Ha'olam, the Umas Ha'olam, the nation of the world said, the Kavod Atzmai Hu Dorech. He is saying this for his own sake. All these commandments so far just for himself. Kivan Sha'amar, when God said, honor your father and mother, they began in retrospect to believe all the other commandments. Then Yoducha Hashem. They started thanking Hashem and acknowledging Hashem's greatness for all the other commandments too. Okay. Let's skip to the next piece because it's not so related to our sugya. Let's go to the following page. The following page, on page 3182. And we'll go to the paragraph beginning with the word having shown. The nations of the world recognize, you have that? Next page. Yeah, that's the problem. You have the next page? That's why I didn't give it out yet. Why you don't have it. Okay, so here is the copies on the next page. Yes. Okay. So want to give it out. Is a 4. Is a 4. Oh, 5. Yeah. How many souls we have here? We have exactly 5 souls. 5 souls. Perfect. 5 holy souls. I don't count myself. 5 neshamas.
You're also in charge.
Teachers don't have soul. We just no, what that means. I have the actual Gemara, but I don't need it. So. All right. Let's go back to it. Bo Mina, you have it. Having shown the nations of the world recognize the importance of honoring one's parents, the Gemara cites 2 famous examples of how a certain Gentile honored his parents to illustrate the extent of the obligation. Bo Mina, wow, it's so late. Bo Mina, we'll go learn what. Ma'avhula. They asked the question by Ma'avhula. Ad heichon kibbut over aim. How far is the mitzvah of honoring father? I mean, how far do you go? Amalahem. You have the page? Amalahem. Rabula answered, I'll tell you. Take a lesson from a goy. Go and see what once an idolater did in Ashkelon. And his name was Dama ben Nisino. You all know who he is. Pamachas, one time it happened, the sages wanted to buy a certain merchandise from Dama ben Nisino. It actually was from the 8th of the Kohen Gadol, there was a stone missing. And they wanted to purchase that very, very precious and expensive stone, worth who knows how much. And you couldn't get it anywhere, but they found out this guy had it. It says here Pakmatya merchandise, but actually first was stone in the ephod of the Kohen Gadol that he wore, the apron on the shoulders. At a price that would give him a profit of 600,000 gold dinars. He would have profited 600,000 dinars. A dinar is more than $1. So we're talking about millions. The famous story about the key to the chest that contained that stone, that diamond, that contained the merchandise was lying under his father's pillow, and his father was sleeping at the time, And as much as he wanted to make that money, he couldn't because his father was asleep. Wake your father up. Now, if your father tells you, please wake me up, please wake me up, then you're allowed to wake him up. But this wasn't the case. You would think that in this case, the father would probably want him to be woken up. But nonetheless, he wasn't sure, and even on a suffix, on a doubt, the goy, not even Jewish, held back from a tremendous profit of millions, and not to cause his father to ruin his father's sleep. That's how far you go. Okay. We're going to soon learn later the mitzvah of honoring parents. You have to honor your parents. Can you use their money, or do you have to use from your own money? The machlokus is settled. No, you don't have, unless they're poor, they have nothing, they have no assets at all. Then the thing is that you don't have to use yours. You can help them with their own belongings. There's a machlokus, and we paskin Michel Av. You can use your father or your mother's belongings or money, my finances, to help them. You're not obligated to do so with your own money. If you want to do that, great. You're beautifying the mitzvah, but you're not obligated to do so. You're not violating the laws of honoring parents if you don't want to pay with your own personal money. However, by the way, if it happens to be not a loss of not a loss of money, but a loss of profit, like for example, you have a chance to win something. If I rush to the store or whatever, I have a chance to win the lottery. Let's say it's a real good chance, not like today. 1 out of 5 people you can win millions. But my father or my mother wants me to be with them, and I have only 5 minutes. 5 minutes over, I miss. That you have to give up. Any kind of profit, you have to give up. We're not telling you to spend your own money, but to make money, no, give that up. What about if you're working and your father says, take off some time from work? If you're going to lose your job, for sure you don't have to do that. If you're going to lose some money, some argue, even if it's a loss of wages, those hours that you're not in work, you're not working, they're not going to pay you for those hours. So that's also a loss of money. It's not a loss of profit, it's a loss of your job. That also counts. But if it's just a revach, a side thing, a sidekick, someone asks you, someone comes over to you, and either the example I just gave with the lottery, or more practical example, can you are you a tutor? No. Would you want to tutor my son? I'll pay you for it. Okay. $50 an hour. Okay, sure. I'll do it. It's after your job is over already. So this is a side thing. And your father tells you, oh, please, I need you. Everyone agrees you got to give that time up. But that's not your job. That's extra. Okay, let's just finish this. I know it's late. Yeah. Rabbi Huda Mashmuel, Shalos Rabbi Lezer, Ad Heichon Kibbut Al Ba'aim, Amalahem, Tzu, Uru, Ma also, Evike Chavim, Echel, Abe Ba'avshalom, the Dama Ben Sina Shmuel, the same story, but here, so I actually mentioned the story with the ephod first. The first story was not with the ephod, it was just a business deal. Here is with the ephod, with the Avonim that wanted to buy stones for the ephod, the Shishim Ribu Sachar, at a price that would give him a profit of 600,000 dinars. Rav Kahana Masni B'Shmona Ribu. If he would have had 80,000, not 80,000, sorry, not 80,000. Shishim Ribu is 600,000, and 80 Ribu would be 800,000. 80 myriads. You know what a myriad is? Myriad is 10,000. 80 times 10,000 is 800,000. 800,000 dinars. A dinner is like $4. So we're talking about millions. Rav Kahana taught that the potential profit was 800,000 gold dinars. Almost finished. The key to the chest, again, contained the precious stones was lying under his father's pillow. He refused to disturb his father's sleep. And he was rewarded. What was the reward? The Shana Acheret, next year, God gave him his reward, this guy. What was the reward? A Parah Aduma, a red heifer, was born in his... I want to stay a little longer. I'm not going to torture you, don't worry about it. What was the reward? Parah Aduma is worth a lot. And the Jews were willing to pay who knows how much. And all he said was, I'm not going to ask you for the real price of the Parah Aduma. I'll just ask you to pay me the profit, which is a lot of money, that I lost because of my father not waking up. Well, going, he has to get something back. But he didn't get the whole, the Parah Aduma was worth a lot more. What was the reason why Hashem, I'm going to laugh at, what was the reason why Hashem made it that the Jews should pay so much money for a Parah Aduma? Look at the difference on a Jew and a non-Jew. The non-Jew risked his wealth for a mitzvah that's understandable. Kibbud over aim. We were willing to pay for who knows how much for a mitzvah that's not understandable, paraduma. So a non-Jew, whatever he understands, he does, and he'll even do it at a loss. But for a Jew, even paraduma, which makes no sense whatsoever, all the laws of paraduma, the red heifer, and yet we were willing to offer this guy all the money in the world he would want to, demand from us. So that's the story over here. We have much more to go. This is just the beginning, and I want you to know it inside out, backwards and forward.
If we are living in different countries than our parents, we are missing the opportunity to resolve.
Call them every now and then. That's
Yeah.
also honoring. Okay.
But we are still missing it. It's not the same as seeing them in person once a week. You can
True, but right, that's why we have a phone today, and you can order. Way to honor them is by giving them, first of all, honoring them by calling them, honoring them by saying, I love you, things like that. According to the Haredim, that would be a mitzvah. Okay, I'm one with the What?
Older brothers.
Not to that extent. You kicked me out, no?
No,
No?
that's true.
Older brother, not to that extent, but you have to, your older brother, if the older brother is not just older, but he's the first one.
That's true.
And your David, and your mother's husband, and your husband's wife. Some say